Alright fellas, now it's Canelo Crawford fight week, and since we last probably talked about it, a lot has happened. More and more details have been released and leaked from both camps, and there's certainly a lot of interesting food for thought. So ahead of this huge fight, I want to talk about this card as a whole, what we've seen so far, and based on that, what we should kind of expect. But just quickly, if you don't know me, my name's Cloister, and I make boxing videos to help keep you informed, so make sure to subscribe and I'll always keep you in the loop. Now, Canelo vs Crawford is absolutely an interesting fight. It was a fight no one was asking for, but the battle between the two, once you break it down, is a fascinating one. And we'll break that down in a second, but first I want to talk about what isn't so fascinating, and that's the undercard. Now, this was probably some news which went under the radar for a lot of you, but it was released a few weeks ago. And what I find amazing about this whole spectacle is we've been told the whole time how big this event's going to be. The undercard's going to be over 2 or 3 days. This event's going to be the biggest of the decade, one of the biggest of all time. But I don't know about you, but having Callum Walsh versus Fernando Vargas Jr. is far from a fight that should be co-main worthy. For an event like this, we shouldn't have a co-main, which the normal fight fan doesn't know either fighter. I just don't get it. But surely there's something better on this card than the co-main. No, it's just a bunch of mid. Like, Walsh Vargas Jr. and Mbili Martinez are interesting bouts for the more hardcore boxing fans. But this is meant to be the biggest event of the year, a true showcase of the sport. And if that's the case, why are we staring at a list of names which the average boxing fan would be stretched to know? Of course the main event is great, but what about the rest of the card? Not a single name here has been on a single significant undercard. Their exposure to the casual fan is minuscule. Except for the Saudi fella, but even then, that's debatable, that counts. There's literally nothing here to be hyped for in the undercard. The main event's great, but there's nothing to be hyped for here, and I hate to say it. They could have massively boosted promotion with just one kind of big name. They don't even have to be fantastic. Why didn't they push forward Haney? What about Bacole? I would have even taken a Badu Jack at this point. Literally anyone with a half decent name. It just seems like such a failed opportunity. And to make it sweeter, there's better fights on the prelims. Why would they just move up, like any of the names such as Boachuk, Franklin or Nelson to the main card? Like at least they have a vague name and are fun to watch. I don't know, it just puzzles me. What also puzzles me is that main event. I've been putting off making this video and I think I'll keep my predictions until a few days prior, when we break down all the fight week activities. But over the last few weeks, my opinion's been swaying. I've been going in and out of boxing gyms, talking to a range of different people, and it's clear this fight has a lot of people split. Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comments, but what has been swaying a lot of these thoughts has been the news coming out of the respective camps. Now, there's probably been more news coming from the Canelo side, but to take it back a second, it's clear to see, even if you're a Canelo fanboy, in the last stretch of fights he's had, he hasn't been fighting the true elite. With that last fight probably being the worst out of the bunch from William Skull. Now, Skull is a controversial figure. He sparked that whole no running thing, which that topic was beat to death by other YouTubers. But did Skull bottom line go on the jog? Yes. Did that make it harder for Canelo to do anything in the fight? Absolutely. But if Skull was fighting Canelo of 5-10 years prior, would have that Canelo done a better job against Skull? Simply yes. Canelo's flaws from that fight went under the radar because how monumentally bad Skull's game plan was. So Canelo's performance just wasn't fantastic, and kind of the uncomfortable truth which Canelo fans are gonna have to face sometime soon is their favourite fighter is getting older. And in boxing years, he's pretty old. And age catches up to almost everyone in this sport eventually, especially with a style like his. Now, his finishing ability is kind of questionable, his speed has decreased, and I'm not bagging Canelo, it's just the reality of what's been in front of us over the last few fights. And that leads us into what has come out from this camp. Both camps have been fairly secretive, but what we've seen from the Canelo camp is a bit more about his sparring. The one sparring partner he brought in, which grabbed everyone's attention, was Boots Ennis, and in my opinion, he's probably the most technically skilled current boxer outside of Crawford. Of course, he fights a light division, but because of his height and technique, it's easy to understand why Canelo brought him into his camp. Now, the major controversy was that Canelo looked a bit beat after the sparring, a mouse under his eye, and that was an opportunity for the Bud fan base to jump on him. Now, of course, this isn't the best look, but you're talking about a fighter in Canelo who gets bruised fairly easily, and I think it's a bit of a stretch to read into any of these photos. If it went as bad as people think it did, I don't think they'd be posting photos after. Canelo has also had a range of other sparring partners in and out of camp, which didn't get the same fanfare, but I think it's safe to say that Canelo is going to be as prepared as he can be. But what I think is almost more interesting is the other side of the coin in Crawford. There's been very little to come out of the Bud camp, and that's probably been on purpose. Canelo doesn't know what he's going to get with a Bud at that weight, so not letting him know anything is a smart thing. Now, these photos were really the main thing coming out of the Bud camp which did the rounds. Of course, Crawford looks jacked, but then those photos were met by these photos, which Crawford doesn't look so jacked. But those latter photos did come out a few months ago, so you can disregard them. But Crawford does look jacked, but God, he has a lot of muscle on him, so it'll be interesting to see how that translates in the fight. But regardless of what has come out about this fight, my first thoughts when I heard this matchup was, Canelo's way too big. Canelo's easily taken the punches of more powerful fighters, and he should have the ability, hypothetically, to touch Crawford. But when you break it down further, that's where it gets fascinating. You have two Hall of Fame level fighters with massive question marks surrounding them, which just won't be solved until they enter the ring. Will Canelo be as competitive as he was in the past against the elite of boxing? Is his finishing ability still there? And how's he going to deal with a fighter who's not going to just stand there and trade? For Crawford, how will that weight jump affect him? Does he still have that speed and power? Does it translate well? Will his inactivity come back to haunt him? And for both of them, neither of them are spring chickens. Will age come into play here? There's just so many questions to answer. For me, looking at Canelo, if he boxes the same he did against Skull, he won't win. Canelo will need to chase Bud to a certain point, and Bud's going to be slick. He's going to try and evade, get his punches off, and get out of there. And if Canelo isn't putting absolute pressure on, Bud is skilled enough to control the 12 rounds. But at the same time, if the weight is too much for Bud, he's slow, his power isn't there, Canelo can absolutely take advantage of that. Hopefully during this fight week we'll get a better look at them in public workouts or something, and we'll be able to have a better take of what to expect. So we'll be covering everything fight week. If something important happens, we'll make sure to break it down here as it happens. So make sure to subscribe, and as I said before, we'll always keep you in the loop. But for now, I want to hear what you think. What are your thoughts 1 week out? What have you thought about what's come out so far, and who do you have winning this mega fight? Let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. I love reading every single one of them. Yet, thanks for watching, fellas, and I'll catch you in the next one.